Welcome everybody to the next in our series of Zoom specials in which we look at different sporting aspects, clubs and organisations throughout the west of Ireland. And over the past two, we've had already athletics in Galway, and we've also had the Galway United supporters giving us their thoughts on the forthcoming season and the last few months with COVID-19 and restrictions and everything that has come with that over the past year or so. But I'm now moving on to a sport that has seen a marked increase in participation due to the success of the international sides, especially with the women reaching a World Cup final, going to the Olympic Games, and also becoming household names right throughout the country and right throughout many different sporting, sporting views. And we are talking about hockey. Hockey in the west of Ireland has been on the go for quite some time. We look at Galway Hockey Club. They're celebrating their 70th year in existence this year. Delighted to be joined by Donald Dempsey, who will tell us more about that in a few moments' time. We'll also be hearing from Aisling Keogh, who is here representing Connacht Hockey. Tanya Schaefer is a development officer. It'll be interesting to hear her perspective as regards how the game is being developed and how the sport is being developed throughout the west of Ireland. Elaine McDermott is here to speak about hockey in schools in Sligo and also as an academy head coach. Jennifer Hyde is coach with Athlone Hockey Club. And we'll also hear from Sharon Tannion, who's coach of Kinvara Hockey Club. Ellie Duffy is a name you're all very familiar with. She has already found herself in the higher echelons of umpiring when it comes to European hockey. We'll be hearing from Catherine Moore, another familiar voice to those who have watched our coverage or listened to our coverage of hockey over the past number of years and Greenfield's successes. Yvette Quinn, who is one of the legends, I would call, a lady you will always see in Dangan. It could be in under sixes, could be all the way up to senior. She'll be there, and delight to have her with us. Maeve Hudson, also from a club that have performed spectacularly well in national competition in recent years, that being in UIG. Now, we were hoping to have somebody from Yates in Sligo. Unfortunately, through no fault of their own and with circumstances way beyond our control, unfortunately, we don't have one from them for this feature, but we definitely are thinking of them and very much in solidarity with them as well, as all clubs in the province are. Now, just to give you a breakdown of hockey in Connacht. Now, people might say, well, what's the big deal? But actually, people may forget that hockey's been played in this part of the world for many, many, many years. In fact, it might not be that far long ago, but people would remember the old shale pitches. In fact, Roscommon, the Mercy in Roscommon, had a shale hockey pitch for many years before they converted it, so the game was being played there. It's been played in schools right across the province, and we've had great success with teams going to likes of Taylor's Hill, for example, playing in the Kate Russell, which is the major girls hockey competition in the country where they have represented the province. But they're only one. There are many others that have been involved as well. Schools from Sligo have been involved, of course, from Athlone, and many others right throughout the length and breadth of this province. And that's just the school's point. But at the club level, we've had Greenfields, Galway, Inuig, Rinmore and Kinvara, who have all performed spectacularly well. They are the five clubs from Galway that are in Connacht. We've got Yates from Sligo, and of course Athlone, who would I would argue Jennifer Hyde would be Roscommon if they're playing in Connacht. But we will talk about that a little bit later on. To all of you, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And Elaine is joining us there at the bottom, and I appreciate you taking the time out as well. I'm going to start off with, I suppose it's the main question given the past 12 months that this country has had to go through, and the rest of the world for that matter, and that being COVID-19 and the issues it has led, I suppose the issues it's given to the respective clubs. And if we can start, Aisling, first of all, with yourself, if I may, because in an overall umbrella sense, Connacht Hockey has had to face the challenges of COVID-19 like all the other provincial units in this country. But it would be fair to say it's been a little bit more difficult for Connacht, considering that there are only 7 clubs. A lot of teams are involved in provincial competition, like first, seconds, thirds, of course, and then you've got the teams that were involved in the EY leagues. So all of that put together has meant a major headache for the organisation of hockey in Connacht, and just trying to keep people interested, to put it bluntly.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose COVID for everybody in many different ways has been so difficult, but definitely with sport, everybody has been hit so hard by it. I mean, with regards to our clubs and the involvement, I suppose one of the aspects of it was the interprovincial tournament that was supposed to happen at the end of last year. I think it was September, October. And then when the lockdown came through, they were postponed, and the expectation was that they might go ahead in February this month. So I suppose for those players it was very disappointing, because they were waiting and waiting and waiting to see whether a competition was going to go ahead or not. And coaches, managers, players, parents, everything put so much into it. And we just recently found out that it's actually not going ahead. With regards to the clubs, I mean, it's been very difficult, and especially, I suppose, in Galway as well, with one pitch. You know, even if you wanted to try and segregate it and have people on at different times, it's very difficult. It was difficult before COVID, and just even more difficult now with COVID. But to be fair to all the clubs, they've done an absolutely fantastic job. They've been running a lot of online training and coaching, and different kind of fitness initiatives online to keep players involved and their coaches involved. So please God, you know, things will improve, and we'll be back hopefully in September on the pitch. And maybe that's a bit optimistic, but we're hopeful.
Well, I mean, one thing about it is optimism is crucial when it comes to sport, that there is that expectation that these events can and will, and I use the word will, happen, because it's, I suppose, a fair statement to say, Aisling, and I'll stay with you, that people need something to look forward to. I mean, the girls that go out to Dangan, and I'll just use Dangan with to be totally fair to both Jennifer and Elaine. Dangan is probably the busiest hockey pitch, I would argue, in the country, because I remember only a couple of years ago when the provincial finals were held, there were games start at 9 o'clock that morning, and we're going all the way through to, I think, the senior final. The senior cup final, I think, was down for 4 o'clock that afternoon. So when you have, you know, a pitch like that going through that much wear and tear and whatever, people need that kind of thing to look forward to, because even if they're playing at 9 o'clock, they're going to be there at 8. They're going to be prepared. They're looking forward to it. It gives them an element of excitement.
Of course. And I mean, it's the whole competitive side of it. I mean, many people on this call here are those people who are on the pitch on a Saturday and Sunday from 9 until 6 o'clock in the evening, who've dedicated their whole lives to hockey, you know, even to give back from their own playing careers. So yeah, I mean, it's vitally important even for children and their mental health and just the whole social aspect. So it's really devastating to think that it's been going on so long. And yes, you're right. Dangan is, you know, I mean, it is one of the busiest pitches, I would say, around the country. I definitely agree with you on that. I mean, you have 5 clubs utilising it, 7 if you talk about the home games and everything else. Then you have our vets and our development squads. So yeah, and there's definitely wear and tear on it. It'd be lovely to see a new surface on it maybe in time.
Well, one can hope that will happen. Actually, Jennifer, can I bring you in for a minute? Because obviously in Athlone, being in the centre of the country, you may have the luxury of there being possibly more opposition if it was such a case. So you're playing in, you know, you're involved in Connacht, but there is obviously the Leinster clubs which are just knocking on the door right outside your town. How difficult has it been for a club like Athlone to deal with COVID, given the lack of games and obviously the situation regarding social distancing and trying to keep a club going in this time?
Yeah, well, I suppose we were quite lucky. We have 57 girls registered for senior hockey. So we've senior 1, 2 and 3. And that's from everybody that's over the age of 16, really. So a large chunk of our senior players were of school-going age. So we could still actually train for quite a while during lockdown because school-aged people could still train. So we still managed to have proper training sessions, but obviously using social distance drills. That, I suppose, the most difficult thing there was not being able to tackle, trying to get the girls just to shadow, not to tackle, try and keep their 2 metre distance. But we actually had Zoom fitness classes every Tuesday for the over 18 girls. So that was really nice. We got to keep the sense of the team alive there as well. But it has been quite difficult.
Elaine, can I ask that question as regards Sligo? I mean, you're obviously coaching from a school's perspective and the schools aren't open. So that's kind of put your job a bit in the back burner. But from an academy perspective as well, because you've got players who would be kind of coming through the ranks with the hope of improving their game and, maybe getting some, interprovincial experience, as Aisling mentioned, and also maybe a possible, national call-up, because quite a few girls have done that. They've kind of gone through the ranks and they're playing at underage level for Ireland, maybe a lot more, I would argue, than in previous years. But how difficult has it been then to keep them interested and keep them excited and keep them optimistic about future games and the future in general?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Can you hear me?
I can, of course. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting that from the point of view of schools. I agree with Jennifer that we could do an awful lot of training in school from September to Christmas. And my biggest observation was that I had more girls out playing during that time than any other time. And the reasons might have been that other sports weren't continuing. But also I feel there was an element for the girls who were least competitive. There was no team element. There was no picking of teams. There was no disappointments. We all went out and we played 2 or 3 times a week after school, and they really, really enjoyed it. And so for me, that end is the complete opposite to what we're trying to develop in the academy end. But that was a really, really a gift during that time. In relation to the academy, I suppose some people would say it was a very bad year to start the academy, and there's good and bad and everything. We did get a lot of the Sligo regional training sessions going. I did manage to get to Galway a number of times and to Athlone a number of times, and so we set things in place for when we can pick them up again. So that was, a lot of the hard work was done, a lot of the groundwork was done, and so we're ready to hit the road again whenever we can in relation to the academy. It is very disappointing and very difficult for the girls who were about to play interprovincials. But Hockey Ireland have just put in place a strength and conditioning and fitness training for all interprovincial players, so that they know what is the standard for fitness for the Irish under-16 hockey team. They all feel involved at the next level, and whether or not they get to play the interprovincials, they feel that they are engaged and they have connection to the Irish under-16 coach. And so that was a really beneficial program to put in place, and it just happened this week. So I feel that while the girls haven't played the interprovincials, they know that they're being noticed. They know they have an opportunity to train. They know they have responsibility that they can take themselves to move on up the levels.
Catherine, can I come to you from Greenfield's point of view? Yeah. Obviously, you were involved in the EY2 league, and that was then put on the tin hat a couple of weeks ago with the announcement, which I must confess wasn't a major shock, because there was very little hockey played at that level, since September. Did you find it difficult or maybe just disappointing that the league was stopped the way it was, and because you would have had maybe in the back of your mind the possibility of playing some hockey at the end of February, early March?
Yeah, so actually, John, Greenfields weren't going to be in the IHL this year. It was NUIG and Galway, so this was the first time in a number of years that Greenfields wouldn't have been participating in it. But I think it was inevitable, the way numbers started going up in January, that they wouldn't get the leagues played out at this stage. And, talking about bringing the season into the summer, that really wasn't going to work either, because, you've all the girls that play other sports, the GA will be back, and, you'd get the fall off there, and then you'd be starting your pre-season in August again anyway. So I think it was probably the right decision. I think it was good to draw a line under it and give the clubs a chance to kind of focus on other things, just going forward.
But it brings Maeve and Donal in, and I can get your perspectives on this. Maeve, I'll start with you. As Catherine made the point, you were going to be playing IHL. It takes a lot of preparation to get ready for that, because you're obviously travelling around the country. But were you surprised when the announcement was made?
Ultimately, no, I don't think we were very surprised as a club, especially as Catherine said in January, with the numbers going up a lot. And then even pre-season was interrupted this year as well, because we couldn't get back training until mid-August. We did get one game up in Queens, which was a good experience. So it was one EY game for our firsts. and it was traveling, but it was, even at the time, like we couldn't get all the girls going because people were afraid for COVID and stuff like that. So it definitely had a big impact on us and our training and the direction we wanted to take with our club. We want to like get to high performance every year and build on our club. And obviously COVID has interrupted that now for us. So it's disappointing, but ultimately I think it's the right decision anyways, yeah.
Being a college side, would that also have had a bearing? Obviously you would have had guys who might have been in college and university as well, who were playing as well. So so not having them, is there a fear then that, they're going to be, if they finish, say, if some of those students finish their studies this year, you won't have them next season. So you're going to find yourselves having to play catch up a little bit. Is that fair?
There's an element to that, but we are an open club now as of the last few years. So students that finish their degree now are moving on, can stay on with the club and play as a non-student player. So we have a few girls that are like in working world and stuff that are training with us. So hopefully we'll keep some of those players, but there'll definitely be an impact because people will be moving away and moving abroad and progressing with their studies. So there will be a fall off with some players, but we hope to retain the majority of the team that we have now at our top level, and then keep growing at the second and third team, and like keep up the numbers in the club.
Donal, if I can come to you, congratulations on 70 years in existence, by the way. Lovely article.
Thank you very much.
Lovely article in the newspaper about it. I suppose 70 years is a long time in hockey, but you wouldn't have expected, or anyone would have expected, to have gone through the last 12 months like everyone else has, and for yourselves it will be no different.
Oh, I agree. It's been a very funny year. No hockey. There's a few people here tonight who practically spend their weekends in Dangan. You've already mentioned a few. Myself and my wife even, we could be there from 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning up to 2 o'clock, 2:30. Same on a Sunday, even longer. So in some cases it's been a nice break, but it's gone on way too long.
Do you have a question, I suppose, amongst your own members as to, because obviously you have to follow the guidance that comes from Connacht Hockey, who in turn have to follow the guidance that comes from the national organisation, from Hockey Ireland. So do you have people kind of even asking now at this stage, when are we going to get back out onto the pitch? Do we know?
Best of my knowledge, no, we don't know yet. Again, as you just said, we need guidance from Ireland before we can go back. I have met a few of our younger players who are looking very dejected, want to know when we're going back. So, fingers crossed it won't be too long.
Sharon, can I come to you next? And you're very welcome, and thank you for joining us. You're coaching with Kinvara. What's COVID been like for your club? What kind of effect has it had on you? And if you might just take your microphone off mute, sorry.
That'd be handy. So yeah, it's very disappointing for the girls. Like the other teams, we trained away there up to Christmas, and they really enjoyed it. And they missed, the matches, but it was a time to focus on lots of drills, and you had a good excuse to keep the drills going because they always love, a match. And they had to be a bit more focused to learn their drills. But they and like that, the players that weren't always making the A team, got to be really good at the drills as well and learn loads. So yeah, it's just been a disappointment. I feel very disappointed for our girls that made the under-16 team as well, for the Interpros. So that's just devastating altogether. And that's where we're trying to grow our club as well. We don't have training grounds out in Kinvara. So, speaking of Dangan there, that's our home base for our matches, funnily enough. But that's the reality of it. And, so to try and grow our club and skill base, we're getting there. We're getting 2 girls on the team, the under-16 team this year, and we're very, very proud of them. So I'm delighted to hear Elaine saying there that, Hockey Ireland are taking on board some online training and taking, that into account, that they're not getting to play in the Interpros. And Yeah, it's just our numbers are growing and everything goes so well, and it's just unfortunate for us all.
Yvette, thanks for joining us. Good to see you. For Renmore, the situation is quite similar. I have no doubt, of course, obviously, it's keeping people interested. But, how difficult has it been to keep a club like Renmore going in the last few months?
Well, for the likes of us, we are a social club apart from playing in the Connacht League as well. And what we found this year was we had the whole... we became homeless again, we'll say, for our junior club out in Moore. So we've already done that once when we became homeless from our views. So we're all based up in Dangan, as is everyone else. But our members are slightly older than most of the other clubs. So it's going to be a lot harder to get us back on the pitch because we need to kind of keep moving at our age. So once you stop, it's actually a lot slower to get back in again.
Is recruitment a major problem then? I probably answered your question already, but the fact that, as you said yourselves, I won't use age. It wouldn't say that wouldn't be fair, but it's to get players involved back in a club like that again. You obviously have to try and keep that going in some way, shape, or form. So, is it going to be difficult to recruit younger players?
It will in many ways because we've lost an awful lot of the girls from Calasanctus that we did have. So when we were training out in Moore, we had a huge crew of the girls that used to come and play with us. And because we train at 8:30 at night now in Dangan, it is a big spin now for parents to actually bring the kids from Moore. A lot of them are in Clarenbridge and that, all the way across town and over to Dangan, especially when a lot of them will be doing junior cert and that. So I think we've a handful of 18, 19-year-olds. We have a few first years in college, and then the rest are actually more senior ladies, should we say.
Understood. I'll come back to the issue on a home pitch in a couple of minutes' time, because it does have a major bearing not just on one or two clubs, but on the county and provincial hockey in general, and that being the fact that there isn't a water-based pitch in the west of Ireland when every other pitch in the country seems to be that particular way. That's for a little bit later on. Ellie, good to see you. Thanks for holding on. Now, you're actually been in a rather unusual situation. We had this discussion not that long ago because you were getting involved for European games, which were going ahead regardless of COVID. So, give us your experiences of that.
Well, like everybody else, we're a little bit up in the air. So I'm supposed to go to Spain in July this year, but we're being told that there's been a load of tournaments postponed already. So by the end of April, we should find out whether my tournament's going ahead or not. I suppose I spent the last 3.5 years previous COVID on the road every weekend, and I suppose this is the biggest break I've ever had. I've only had, I think, yes, because I suppose at the time I was going, God, I'd love a weekend off, or I'd love a day where I don't have to go to a hockey pitch. And now I'm going, okay, that's too long a break now. I'm ready to get back. I'm ready to get going. I'll go anywhere, any game.
Well, European sporting organisations have found themselves in a wee bit of a quandary over the last week or so, because for those who may or may not be aware, the European Indoor Athletics Championships are still being held in Turin in March, as far as we know. And that has actually put pressure on other European sporting organisations to get their finger out, because athletics are kind of going, if we can do it, so can ye. So could we, and obviously because the rules are now becoming so strict regarding quarantine and travel, and we've already seen games in the Europa League in soccer being fixed. One game that was meant to be fixed for London is now being played in Athens, for example, featuring Arsenal and a few others. But do you think that actually European Euro hockey might now actually kind of go, well, we better get something going? Because it is obviously an Olympic year. Teams have to train, competitions have to be played, and they might go down the road of maybe strict quarantines 2 weeks before tournaments, bubbles, that kind of thing.
Problem with Euro hockey is it's a voluntary organisation, so in terms of quarantining, getting teams out there, they have absolutely no control and no funds to be able to help teams in order for that. In terms of Olympic preparation, I think that the important is getting your All-Ireland League getting going, because that's 99% of the players. If they can get back up to competitive hockey, that'll bring the standard, and then they can move on. They were in Spain a couple of weeks ago for a couple of training matches, so they are working towards the Olympic preparation.
We'll talk about that as well in a little second. And in fact, because I want to bring you in, Tanya, if I can, as a development officer. Good to see you. The difficulties of developing a game when there's no game to develop can lead to severe headaches. And for yourself and our development officers right around the country, what have you been? And this might sound like a flippant question. I apologise in advance, but what have you been doing?
Good question. I'm joking. A lot of the work that we normally do behind the scenes work. So one of the things from a development officer, there's a few programs that Hockey Ireland's been working on to, redevelop. A lot of it was linked with the new umpiring pathway that's come through. A lot of work was done with that. Some of the other parts of it is the redesigning of the coaching courses, the fundamentals, level 1 and the Hooked for Life program. So all those things were part of the pipeline. From our side, from a Connacht regional perspective, I have to say it's been quite challenging and frustrating. I had a few plans up and going to start some taster sessions for junior hockey in Duishka on the kind of the tennis court that's a 2G surface in this area. Obviously, that didn't happen. I had extensive talks with the Mayo LSP to develop hockey within the Mayo region. We had a few schools lined up in 3 areas, and as I said, that hasn't happened to date as well. So I suppose a lot of it has just literally been meetings and planning and trying to put some steps in place or trying to predict more that, when things go back to, for example, level 3, at least you could run some coaching courses for, to do some development from that perspective. And that's kind of pretty much what we've been doing literally the last kind of 8 months, really.
Yeah, can I ask this question? And I suppose when you are a development officer, you have to put those plans in place, as you said. Is that something that has been done? I mean, nobody knows when play is going to resume. We don't know yet. We like everybody, we're waiting to see what announcement comes from the government and from NEFIT and what have you. But are you set it up in such a way that the minute you're told go, you go, that there's no time to waste? You just get on with it straight away?
Well, it's for the Duishka one, I suppose we've got some assistance from some coaches from Renmore that said they would be helping her to start those sessions. So hopefully if we have a bit more clarity on that, we can start putting stuff together so we actually would have some sessions done. The Mayo one is a little bit more challenging. It's linked with primary schools. We're going to look to start running some programs within primary schools. So I suppose that would be more based on their contact with those particular primary schools. And we would need to have teachers that are involved in that program to get them up and running and trained. So that in itself is going to be a totally different challenge. But I suppose that one, I think from the talks we've said, is probably only going to happen next season. I can't see anything of that happening, for this one. So I suppose hopefully for next season, we'll have all that bits and pieces that's linked with the training, identifying people that would be willing to help with the programs to get them up and running. So when it is in a position that you can do it, that we can literally, as I said, we can hit the ground running.
I was always amazed that there wasn't a hockey club in Mayo. There could have been one in Castlebar back in the day, or even in Westport for that matter. But I was just surprised that the game has actually kind of fallen away there. Does that make it difficult then for you to try and get back up and run again?
Yes, I suppose in many ways the biggest issue with Mayo, there are no outdoor hockey facilities. There's a grit pitch that was used by a school in, I think was Abinock, was it Abby McMoy? It was Gortner Abbey, that's it.
Gortner Abbey, yeah.
Gortner Abbey.
Yeah, so they had a hockey program in the school there, and they still have the grit pitch, I believe. And that's probably as close as you're going to get to a hockey pitch. I had the exercise where I requested from the MAOCP, working with a lady named Deirdre Donnelly. She's been very good, and she's been trying to see if there's any other facilities around. And they just aren't. You've got your 3G pitches, etc., which makes it really difficult. So the only programs that you probably really could run is either going to be your yard hockey that is fine for schools that just wanted to start off hockey and they have the same grab or grit at the back. With TAR, a lot of it is listed as aimed at primary schools. And then the other option that we were looking at in Mayo is going to be the indoor hockey, where there's quite a few schools that would have a sports hall that you could then associate with that. So those are really the two options from that until such time that, hopefully we would then be able to get some, let's say, buy-in from councils if we were able to set up some hockey in the area for them to look and invest in a full-size outdoor 2G pitch that could be utilised for that.
I mentioned in my introduction about Roscommon the fact that they had an outdoor hockey pitch for many years before they redeveloped at the back of the Common to Mercy, or where the main hall is there. Elaine, back to you for a second. Regarding facilities in Sligo, what are they? What are they like? Is it something similar to what Tanya has mentioned there?
Not really, actually. For such a small province, the three regions couldn't be more diverse, actually. Galway is struggling and desperately needs more facilities, whereas Sligo has 3 secondary schools feeding into the club, and 2 of those secondary schools have 2G pitches. So from the point of view of facilities, we don't have a water base, but we certainly have loads of space and loads of time and loads of access to pitches. So that's not an issue in Sligo, which is ironic.
Well, but also, I suppose you find yourselves fortunate that you have those kind of facilities then, because it means you can develop the game a lot quicker. Yeah.
In fairness, the grammar school and the Ursuline have been very progressive in getting the pitches. Developing the game is difficult because we find that when our 6th years get to 6th year and leave cert, they leave. So developing a senior club team is very, very hard. So the majority of people on the senior club team would be schoolgirls. There is, on the other hand, a very strong mixed social scene of hockey in Sligo, played in the Ursuline, and that's fantastic. It's difficult to get it all right. If we had the bodies that Galway has and they had the pitches that we had, then I think we'd be well on the way. But I think of the 3 regions, maybe Athlone have a really, really nice setup. They're working very hard in developing their underage players. They have a fantastic facility at the regional centre, and so if we juggle everything about, we'll keep it going. But Sligo is very, very lucky in relation to facilities.
Which brings me on to you, Jennifer. As regards to facilities having Athlone, I was over the past number of years, I've been very fortunate to cover the Community Games National Finals in Athlone in the IT. And when you walk into Athlone IT, the first thing that you have to say is wow, because they just have almost facilities for every single thing going. So you are fortunate in the sense that your own facilities regarding hockey are, at the top echelon of the game in the country.
Yeah, we're actually really lucky. So we're based at Athlone Regional Sports Centre, but we had a new pitch put in. This was meant to be our 2nd season on our new pitch, but we had a new pitch put in 2 years ago, and it's one of only 3 pitches with the FIH accreditation outside of Galway or outside of Dublin. So there's ourselves, there's another pitch in Mulligan in Wilson's Hospital School, and then there's another one in Kilkenny. So we have the national standard accreditation, which just means that we can play lower level national games, regional games, which would be like your interprovincials, and a high standard of club. So we're so fortunate to have it. And it's just been so good in terms of being able to develop the players, because we've now, I suppose, with 57 girls registered for senior hockey, we now have an additional training session midweek. An awful lot of the students can't come to it, our college students, but we still have at least 30 girls at training on a Wednesday night, and then we have another 57 on a Friday. So between 7 o'clock and 9:30 on a Friday night, we're so lucky to have that facility just for us, that we can use that when we want to.
Which brings me to the issue as regards Galway, because as we've all heard, I mean, the facilities are excellent in Sligo. They're top class in Athlone, and Jennifer mentioned in Kilkenny, I think it's Alexander, I can't remember the name of the school, but they've won the K. Russell, I think, basically every year for the past 5 years. I am open to correction on that, but I think that's the case. Galway has a problem, and that is the sense that we don't have a decent enough pitch in Dangan. It's done a fantastic service over the years, given the amount of games that have to be played on it. But there is now a major need for want of a better term, a proper pitch, a water-based pitch, an FIH accredited pitch that would be to the same lines as they have in Athlone or what they have in Dublin in the National Hockey Centre. And therein is our problem, that there isn't one. The issue with Ordenmore is another thing that has come into it, because obviously, as you mentioned, Yvette, the pitch, of course, is gone, and I know that there's plans in place, and the people are trying to do things to make it work. But I'll start with you, and you mentioned it. That's the reason I'm coming back to you. The issue of not having a proper pitch is always going to be a major millstone around the neck of clubs in this part of the country, because if you don't have the proper facilities, players won't play.
Well, unfortunately, it's like time has stood still in Galway, so it is. I was actually a member of the Taylor's Hill team in 1988 that won the All-Ireland finals, the Kate Russell. And in 1988, we used to have to travel to Dublin to play on an AstroTurf pitch, because we didn't have one in Connacht. And now, 30 odd years later, our kids have to travel to Dublin to play on a water-based pitch. So it's the same problem, and it's ongoing for years and years. And it's just like time has stood still. And it's very sad to see that. And I think Donald, Catherine, any of the girls who've been around and lads for years, they know how bad it is and how sad it is that we don't have a facility in Galway that we deserve.
And Sharon, you have that issue in a major way as well, of course, in Kinvara, because you're in Kinvara, you're having to travel to Galway to train. I mean, you would love to have a pitch of your own, or even one kind of halfway between the two, just something that would cut down the travelling, because as we all know, travelling can take its toll on people, and people can get just basically fed up if they're going to have to get into a car, get into a bus and travel for whatever, they go to half an hour, 45 minutes to get to a pitch just to train.
The parents were great. They're bringing them to Ordenmore, which is, it was good 20 minutes. And into Galway is a bit further, but they were happy to travel for the matches. But we were training out of Athenry then, because they still have it's Athenry Football Club. Mm-hmm. So we're renting off them a 2G surface pitch, which is very like what was in Ordenmore. And with the motorway and everything, it was kind of similar time distance, 20 minutes. So we're lucky to have that surface, especially for older girls. The young girls still train on a five-a-side pitch at the back of the national schools, five-a-side soccer pitch. And the it is it's something in between. It's not quite 3D. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's perfect for starting them off. It's great. But to progress in any sport, you need to have the proper facilities. Where you go, where we go, like we have to have facilities. Like we have a fabulous secondary school where hockey's been played in Seamount College for well over 40 years. It's into the early, middle 70s. And we've been crying out for a pitch, for years, and they're the girls deserve it, and the community deserves it, and Galway deserves it, and we need our politicians to help us out and get it sorted.
Maeve and Catherine, Donald, can I bring the 3V in here? Because obviously your three clubs have been involved in national competition, whether it be the IHL or whether it be the respective cup competitions, and all three clubs have done spectacularly well in them over the years. And Catherine, I'll start with you again. I think I had this discussion with you 4 years ago about something similar. And I actually felt like asking the question. I think maybe I did. I can't remember. But do the clubs find themselves then at a disadvantage when they are involved in national competition, especially when it comes to the bigger games? Because they're obviously training on one type of surface. I definitely I asked this question now that I think about it. They're training on one type of surface. They're having to play on another type of surface. That's automatically one that they're not familiar with.
Yeah, it's a completely different game. It's, there's no comparison to a water-based or sand-dressed or sand-based pitch. And, going from playing your matches up in Dangan, like Greenfields in 2012, won the trophy for the Irish Trophy Final. And again, we retained it again in 2013. We were the first Connacht team to win an Irish Cup, which was unreal, really, because the challenges that we had, with the facilities in Galway, because we couldn't do extra training sessions because there was no time on the pitch. We go up, and I remember Deirdre McDermott was coaching us at the time, and she'd be like, get on the pitch as soon as we can and get used to the pitch. She used to say, get yourself used to the pitch, get the ball, dribble it around, pass it around, hit it around. It was because the ball moves in a completely different way. It bounces, you can do different skills, you can dive, you can, so it's a big disadvantage. And particularly for when the teams are playing in IHL 1, IHL 2, but also the interpros, like straight away you're at a disadvantage. And like we've had great results, win Irish Cups and, at interpros over the years. And credit where credit's due, because we're always one step behind the whole time. But, you're talking about the facilities and stuff like that, like Greenfields now was 50 years old, we were meant to celebrate it in October, and unfortunately we couldn't because of COVID, planned to do it this year. But we have 120 kids on a waiting list at the moment across our primary school age group and a few of our secondary school. And I know Galway are in the same situation. The sport is ready to grow, particularly since the World Cup, the success in 2018. But we just don't have the opportunity to grow it at the moment, and it's just a real shame because we have so many great coaches and we have so many parents involved, and getting phone calls saying, if you take my daughter, I'll help coach, and you're like, well, we actually don't have any time to do it, to facilitate it. So it's just a real shame. It's just shocking that 50 years on of our club being in existence and we're in this situation, I mean, we started in Taylor's Hill, that was our home pitch for 30 years, and we moved to Dangan because it was a more modern pitch. And now it's just, it's just shocking really that we're in the situation that we're in now.
And it's the same for you, Donal, as well with Galway Hockey Club. I mean, you have to play like Greenfields, like NUI Galway, like Renmore, like Kinvara. You have to play in Dangan. So if you find yourselves in major competition, I actually remember Galway Hockey Club's men were involved in the Irish Hockey Trophy a couple of years ago, where they had a home game in Dangan. And I remember covering the game. And that was the one issue when I was talking to guys afterwards. There was the team they were playing had a water-based pitch, so it already felt like, even though it was your home ground, you still felt like you were slightly behind.
Indeed. A water-based pitch is vital for hockey to move on in Connacht, or even at this stage, any type of pitch. As Catherine has said, we all have waiting lists. We're turning away kids that we would love to bring into the sport. But, you're caught for time. We just need a pitch. It's that serious. One pitch, another pitch we can't get in on for various reasons. It wouldn't happen in any other sport. And I don't know whether it's because the majority of the sport is played by girls and they're being ignored. I might get in trouble for saying that. But, something has to be done.
Is there something, Maeve? I'll bring you in, obviously, within UI Galway. You're involved in the IHL, and does Donal have a point there in that maybe hockey is being slightly forgotten about? Even though, ironically, it's one sport that had everybody jump on a massive bandwagon before the World Cup final, and come the summer, this team are good enough to challenge for a medal. It'd be awful crack if they find themselves playing in an Olympic semi-final with a gold medal at stake, and then the story comes around that we actually don't even have enough decent pitches to play in.
Yeah, it's definitely a fair point, especially looking at my age group and growing up. It's the main sport, I'd say, played by girls, and it's one of the sports that is actually keeping young girls active and, wanting to, get better at a sport, and it's definitely very important. And I'd say it is neglected, and obviously seen by the lack of facilities that we have. And even as being a student club, it's only recently we've got the recognition that of the club growing, and we're kind of being recognised even by the college as achieving more as we go into the national leagues. So that's great coverage, but still there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And we don't have a junior section, but it's still hard to get all those girls on the pitch and training. And then when we have games at the weekend, we don't want to be sacrificing the likes of the junior trainings for our matches. That's not fair either. Everyone deserves a chance to get their games in and their trainings in. So there is a bit of a you know, you have to make sacrifices, and it's just not fair for the younger kids growing up that want to strive to get better at the sport as well. So it's definitely a big problem that's going on at the moment. And has been, obviously. For
Ellie, I'm going to bring you in a second because I want to get the view from outside of the country. Obviously, you'll be speaking to other umpires and other people involved in hockey around Europe. But just a general question. How much does it cost? If I had the money, I'd do it myself, but I don't. How much does it cost to put in a proper, and Jen, you might have the answer here, actually, or Elaine, you might be able to tell me, how much would it cost to put in a proper IHL accredited pitch? In you know, I mean, say dig up Dangan, for example. I'm not saying do it, but I'm just saying for the sake of argument. You dig up Dangan, someone has put their hand in their pocket and says, right, I want to put in a brand new pitch. How much is it going to cost me? Can someone answer me that?
Last quote I got, John.
Sorry, who first? Go ahead, Tanya.
Well, basically, based from last quotes, as mentioned, is you got the quote came in, but that depends on if the surface is flat and there's no additional construction services done, it obviously would be less expensive. But the one that came in was about 500,000.
Yeah, it was just over 500,000. That was with, like I said, it was with the preparation of the ground, it was with the surface, it was with the lights, it was with the fencing around it. So I think it probably depends on the site that you're putting it down on. It depends on where you go for the quote. And obviously, Jennifer might be able to answer the FIH spec. But the majority of companies that are in Ireland now, I believe there's one in Sligo and there's a couple up north, you would be aiming for an FIH spec. There'd be no point in putting anything else down, really, to be honest with you. It'd be pointless.
A reason I asked that question is, Jennifer, I want to bring you in because what you've done at Loan, I know that rugby clubs have started putting in pitches, 3G, 4G pitches, which is suitable for their game. You may laugh at me for asking this question, but are the specs the same or are they different regarding the say, what's been done for rugby pitches now? We've seen with Donnybrook, and I know in Craig's they have a top of the range pitch in their rugby club. They have a top of the range artificial surface now. So, can somebody tell me, are the specs the same, or would there have to be differences? Ellie, you're shaking your head.
They're totally different. You couldn't play hockey on anything other than a 2G surface, unfortunately. So the 3G and the 4G, as you know from rugby, isn't suitable for hockey.
It's actually got to do with the length of the pile in the artificial surface. So what you have is you have your 2G, 3G, 4G, and now I believe there's a 5G. As far as I know, 4G hasn't even been passed by Sport Ireland. The difference between the 2G and 3G for other sports, such as soccer, rugby and GAA, is that they prefer it because of the grip on the ground that they have. Now, if you go back to when Dangan was first opened, you had all sports on it because it was probably the first of its kind in Galway. So that was utilised a lot. But if we were to move hockey onto 3G, and Donal will back this up because he brought the boys up to the current 3G in Bushy Park, the ball doesn't roll smoothly. And as soon as you go to play a game, the ball lifts, therefore it makes it dangerous. Now, I've had conversations lately and, there's a couple of people in different provinces who say, well, there's nothing wrong with you starting hockey on 3G. That's fine. But if we turn around and we say, yes, okay, that's fine, we can utilise 3G and start hockey. Do you think then that the local sports partnerships or the city council are going to push for us to have a 2G? No, they're not, because they're going to turn around and say that we can play on 3G when in fact we can't. So there's a huge issue around this. Myself and Kevin Keane, the president of Connacht Hockey at the moment, we have had discussions with Jack Chambers, the Minister of Sport. This has been spoken about in the Shannon and the Dáil. And just recently, just this week, we noticed on social media that there's another club in England that is affected by this as well, that they have 2 hockey pitches that are going to be taken up and replaced with 3G. So really, it's about education. It's about educating people got to do with the surfaces, and it's about policy change at a national level in conjunction with Sport Ireland and the Department of Sport. So it's something we need to work on. We've spoken to our NGB about it, but at the rate things are going now, and we spoke to Tennis Ireland about this, at the rate that things are going, every available space that seems to be out there for sport is being covered with 3G surfaces to suit the big three, if you like, who already have their primary surfaces, which are grass. Our primary surface is a 2G artificial pitch, and we are being robbed on a daily basis of our opportunities to play.
Jennifer, I can now bring you in on that as regards Athlone. How difficult and how much work did it take to actually put in the surface that you have there now?
Oh God, you probably.
Jennifer, what we'll do is we'll Jennifer, if you can hear me, we're going to just. Got you back.
Like, we're so lucky that we have the sport. Oh, sorry.
I shouldn't have spoken. But Jennifer, listen, if you can just drop out and drop back in again, and while you're doing that,
how much of that you missed there, but I was just saying that I'm probably the ideal candidate. But we're lucky that we have the sport with the regional sport.
Yeah, we're just breaking up slightly, but don't worry, we will come back to it in just a minute. Donald, if I can, come back to you. There's been a very strong argument from Aisling, and there is a question that is entering my head. If it is costing 500,000, is it possible, Catherine and Maeve as well, I know the 3V are rivals when you play, but could there be an argument for the clubs coming together? And Yvette and Sharon, I'm not forgetting you either, that basically the Galway clubs say, right, we've had enough, we're going to pool our resources, we're going to get this going, and we're going to do it ourselves. Is it possible to do something like that? I'll start with you, Donald.
I suppose it could be. Just to go back to our own club and myself, I've been working with City Hall over the last decade plus in trying to get a hockey pitch, well, initially for Galway Hockey Club, but for the hockey community. We've been in and out. We've had numerous promises that have been made over the years by various people in City Hall. And, it was like a carousel. You'd be in and out. Yeah, we're going to do that. We have the funds now. We'll do this. And nothing happens. Now, I have to compliment Aisling and Kevin over the last couple of months. They have pushed the agenda where there is now, as you can see, hockey is at the forefront at the moment, and they have secured funding along with City Hall, and hopefully we're going to have a hockey pitch on the west side of the city that will ease the pressure. But we need more than one pitch. There's Taylor's Hill needs to be reopened. It was a lovely pitch. It hasn't been played on for a while now. And we'd love to get that back up in operation. I'm sure Catherine would love to be there because it's a beautiful hall that's there as well.
Catherine, I'll come back to you in a second. Jen, you've rejoined us. Sorry, you were saying something there. We lost you there for a second. What kind of work did you have to go to get the facilities you have now?
Yeah, I hope you can hear me now this time. So look, to be honest, our club chairperson, Trina Clinton, is probably the best one to answer that question. This is, I'm only really back in the club the last 2 years. I grew up playing all my club hockey in Athlone, but I'm only back in the last 2 years as a player coach. But the Regional Sports Centre have been fantastic in terms of supporting us for years. I mean, even when I was 14, so that's going way back at this stage. It's going back nearly 20 years when we got the first AstroTurf there. But the Sports Centre have been so good in accommodating us all of the time, all those years. And I know that financially they put an awful lot into the pitch as well. So yeah, I'm afraid I can't really offer you any more than that.
Well, no, in fairness, you've given us a good answer because obviously it came down to a hell of a lot of hard work and also the club itself weighing in behind with support from Athlone IT to be fair in the Regional Sports Centre there. Catherine, I'll come back to you now on that. I mean, it is. This discussion has definitely turned into almost a full-scale appeal. Now, as Donald made the point, we do need more than one. One pitch would be lovely. One water-based IHL pitch would be fantastic. But, to be fair to each of the clubs, they need to kind of have their own ownership, I suppose, in one respect. Even if there was two pitches, maybe, in the city, would that be enough to accommodate everyone?
Yeah, I think I just have to reinforce what Donald said there, just about Aisling and Kevin. And, I know there is subcommittees, and there's a big push on, to try and get a top of the range pitch for Connacht or for Galway, Connacht. But the fact that Taylor's Hill is there, it is an awful shame that it's not being used, because it's a really good pitch. It's a really good standard of pitch. Our club in particular, used to be our home pitch, and we would love to reconnect and, get that connection back up again. And a lot of our members, former members, would have had some connection to the school or the area, and it is sitting there idle. And I know a lot, a pitch on, one side of the city, but I do think a second pitch on the other side of the city is very important as well. And when you see what Athlone have and what Sligo has, it's really, it's very shameful that we don't have some kind of more facilities for the girls. Like, for example, when we have Irish Cup games, I'm involved and I coach our senior team, played up to last year, but I also I'm very involved with our junior section. And, you'd have the draws for Irish Cups, and I'd be like really sometimes hoping that we wouldn't get a home draw, because it would mean we'd have to cancel our junior training, or we'd have to approach Galway to get some time off them, which is never an issue. Just to make a point of that, it's always fine. But, it means the kids are losing out, and, that's not fair. And it's the reason being because we only have the one pitch. So, I think a lot of work is going on behind the scenes, but I think, we really need to get it across the line this year.
And it's the same issue for you, Maeve, as well. I mean, Dangan, let's not put down Dangan. It's been a fantastic servant to everybody, and it's been a fantastic servant to the sport. But obviously, you would love to have a IHL pitch, that a fully standard pitch like what's happening in Sligo and what's happened in Athlone, for yourselves as well, not just even from the club, but even the school's perspective as well.
Yeah, of course. And just to again reiterate what the guys have said already, and all the great work that Ash and Kevin Keane have been doing to try and get that pitch. And it's so disappointing, especially again to mention the Taylor's Hill pitch. Like, I was in school there only a couple of years ago playing on that pitch, and I saw firsthand like how little the pitch got used, and how then going to training and even helping coaching and stuff like that, and seeing all these like the junior sessions getting cancelled, and there's not enough time, and the junior matches that we tried to get them to play, and there's you're going into like 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening with those games, and there's like 10-year-old girls like running around frozen in the weather and everything, whereas they could have had those trainings at like earlier in the day or something if we had another pitch or another facility available to us. So it is very disappointing, and it's just hard to like facilitate everyone on that, and you're trying to compromise with every other club and liaise with everyone, and ultimately we're all losing out in some way. Like, so it's difficult, and it always brings an extra added pressure and added worry that we don't need, and like it would just take a lot of that off us all as clubs. Like, if we had a little bit more leeway for things like that, just for extra space and extra time for everyone. Like,
Yvette, Sharon, I'll bring you both in on this. Obviously, we talked about it a couple of minutes ago regarding the importance of you having a home surface or somewhere that you can call your own, that you don't have to travel for a certain amount of time or a long period of time to get to games and what have you. Yvette, I'll come back to you. I mentioned about the recruitment drive. If there was a place that you could say, right, this is what we're playing on, it's top quality, do you think that one might actually help regarding recruitment of players to the club?
I'd say absolutely, because I think everyone wants to play at the standard that they want to play at, and it's down to lack of facilities, lack of time. So as I said, we train at 8:30 on a Thursday night, and you're sitting at home at 6 o'clock in the evening, and it's lashing rain outside, and it doesn't appeal to go out at that late at night. We don't get home until 10 o'clock. We've girls that travel in from Lochray, from Athenry. So it's 10:30, 11 o'clock at night when they're actually getting home. So if we had more pitch time, it would mean we could actually move our training session maybe earlier on in the evening. But we're not too bad. We're city-based. But the likes of Kinvara that have to travel in for their home matches, so they play their home and away matches in Dangan. And it's a hike in, so it is for the girls, in fairness to them. And they're fantastic to actually have as many teams up and running in the competitions as they do.
Sharon, I mean, Seamount have worked very, very hard with their own sporting programs and what have you. And I think you referenced it a little bit earlier on. I mean, a home ground would be crucial for you. Can you see one happening in your own backyard, or will you? Or maybe you mentioned Athen Rye. Could maybe the new facilities there, because I think they're working on something. If they put a hockey pitch in there, would that be a help?
Well, the story at Athen Rye is they'd probably end up putting down more a soccer-based pitch, you know. So we knew that going in there. But we're learning from them as well, because, you know, they had to apply for grants and everything and set up their club outside the town the way they did. So we're, you know, hoping that with, you know, the county council there could be land, you know, within the South Galway region. It doesn't have to be Kinvara, you know, we're realistic like that. Ideally, of course, our first preference is a connection with the school, because that connection with the players to our club is vital to us, really. There is an extension going on with the school, and I suppose it's just down to land, really, and we border the sea there, so it's hard to stretch out too much. But so we are looking, you know, we'd love to share with other sports like athletics and tennis, and have a multi-purpose pitch. And, you know, I would have to touch on things, you know, Donna said there, you know, if the council is saying it doesn't have money, can they not go and apply for it? Why are we not being prioritised? Like, you know, I'm talking about Galway City now, because we benefit from that with our home games, you know. Yeah, is it because girls play hockey? Is it seen as that? Is it sports discrimination? You know, what is happening? You know, we're being discriminated because it's this sport that, you know, is seen as not being truly west of Ireland or whatever is it? You know, because we should be playing camogie and hockey, but the girls are playing all these sports, and you know, hockey is another fun sport for them all to play, and that's what, you know, the advice is to play many sports and enjoy them all, but it's just not being treated seriously. And, you know, we have to, you know, it's been paid lip service, because we're told increase sport amongst girls, increase sport amongst the older adults. Well, here is a sport that is currently growing exponentially. We're growing from 50 members in 2009 to well over 220 players in Kinvara. We can't go up with the numbers, so we're off out in Athen Rye, where we are in Ordenmore. We did our best to try and hold on to that pitch, and spoke to all the stakeholders, and we put on a great you know, we spoke our causes and said, you know, this is why we need it, and, you know, but it didn't work out for us. And now our aim is on a local pitch connected with the school, a multi-purpose pitch. And, you know, we need, the politicians to take us seriously and take on their, you know, girls in sport, and to grow the sport for the boys as well, because there is a lot of interest coming from boys. We're being asked as well, but we're just so overloaded at the moment for facilities and coaches, and they'd love to play it, and we're like other clubs having to say no.
Ellie, I'll bring you in, because I was going to ask you this question as regards to somebody who's travelled over Europe, and what's the impression, or the European impression, as regards hockey in Ireland? Is it a case of, well, it's just your kind of your fourth or fifth sport, or because you go to countries where hockey is number one sport, or if it's not number one, it's very close to it. You know, maybe second only to football. I mean, you could use Holland as a fantastic example. It's huge in Germany. It's big in Spain. It's Eastern European countries have taken on to it. What's the impression amongst those you speak to, European-wise, as regards what Ireland is like with concerning the sport?
Well, I suppose when I started going to tournaments, I'd say even 4 years ago, we were kind of there to not make up numbers, but we were kind of one of the lower teams that they would play. But now, in all age groups, across all things, Ireland are a team that you want to put out your best team, and you need to put your best performance in against them, because they're now a sport. They're a side that you need to respect them, because the improvement in Ireland is so much. And I mean, the other provinces have put so much in. I mean, I'm up in Ulster a good bit, and every 2 or 3 mile you'd find like a fabulous facilities, and their facilities are improving. Those teams are improving, and I think it's time for us to keep going with it, because I'm so to Mount College. I'm involved in NUIG as well. And everywhere I go, I'm telling everyone about Connacht hockey and how we're improving, and ourselves, even in provincial tournaments, we're now a team that are competing, and you're not easy to beat anymore. We're there to compete and we're there to win. So I suppose that's filtering through right to an international level now.
And actually, that's a very good question a very good point. I want to ask this question next, is the fact that what do we need to do apart from results on the pitch, obviously, is the stuff that happens off the pitch also a great way of showing the rest of the country that this province is serious about the game? We know the province is serious about it. We all know that. Anybody who knows hockey in this province knows that. Sometimes getting the message out, Ellie, is kind of, we have to force it and say, hold on a second, don't treat us as second-class citizens. We're here, we play a sport, we're good at it, we want to do this for a reason.
Yeah, I suppose it goes back to, yourself, Connacht Rugby, to 10, 11 years ago when they had to do a march up in Dublin because they were going to disband Connacht Rugby, and now look at them, they're a powerhouse. So I think it's about riding out this storm and trying to keep improving things, because better days will come. We are passionate and we are looking to improve. So I think if we can keep going, keep pushing, we'll be right up there at the top as well.
I have gone so far over time, it's not even funny, but I wanted to kind of push that, and I want to do one more thing before we leave this feature. And that's basically a quick question to all of you, and the future. What does the future bring? What can we do? And people watching this, and if you are watching this, we really do appreciate you doing it. If you're a member of a political party, I hope that you take on board what we're going to say next over the next few minutes. What do we need to do to get Connacht hockey, Galway hockey, Sligo, bring in Mayo, bring in Roscommon, bring in Leitrim. Carrick and Shannon's a great town. Get everybody involved, because come July, we could be watching an Irish team in a big, big game of the Olympics at 4:00 in the morning, and the whole country will pretend that they knew all about this team when half them didn't know what a hockey stick was, and I'm not ashamed to say that. Message from each of you to those who are watching us tonight. What do we want you to do as supporters? Get behind us, do what you want. The floor is yours, and I will start with you, Yvette.
Just support us. So if you see our Mishnach Lakela campaign, if you see anything on Facebook, just share it, just get it out there that we want a pitch, we need a pitch, and that we're a force to be reckoned with, I think.
Maeve?
Yeah, I'd agree. Just follow. We have a lot of stuff going on social media and things like that. Get the word out. Get involved. If you have any daughters, sons, aunties, uncles, get them involved, volunteer, and it's worth it. It's really definitely worth it, and it's great to see.
Catherine?
Just the sport is ready to grow, so if you can just help us let it grow. It's just awful to have to turn away girls and boys from playing the sport that they all want to play, and it's down to facilities, so just help us get her home.
Sharon?
Yeah, we need playing grounds, we need top class facilities, so anything you can do to spread the word and help us get facilities to keep girls and women in sport.
Ellie, now you're in a different position, I know, but when you can get the message across too.
Yeah, keep talking. Hockey is a fantastic sport. I've seen in travelling that it covers a multitude, age groups, abilities, everything. It's a sport that's for everyone across the board. It's a brilliant sport to get into for anybody. And I think that the more people that get involved in it, the more people will see how great it's going to be and how much it can benefit the whole community.
And I think there was an Irish over 60s team that were world champions or got to a world final only a couple of years ago, which had a couple of Galway lads involved in it as well. One of those wasn't Donald Dempsey, but Donald, what's your message?
Thanks very much. What I say to the politicians is put your hand in your pocket and get the money out. Like I said earlier on, I've been going into City Hall for years. And again, just because there's money to be found, in the last couple of months. We may have a new pitch, but we need more. One isn't enough. It's a great family sport. My wife, my 2 girls play, and we can keep playing until our 80s. We've an elder gentleman in our club, 82, Jack Halliday, still turns out and plays. So, it suits everybody.
Jennifer.
Show us the money.
Jennifer, from your point of view, you're from Athlone.
Yeah, so I'm from Athlone, but I'm actually a teacher in Seaman College in Kinvara, and I coach hockey there as well. And we actually took the girls up to the Olympic qualifier in Dublin when they were playing Canada, and we were fortunate enough to bump into Leo Varadkar, who afterwards actually said that, you're from Kinvara, do you actually play hockey down there? Didn't know you did. So yes, Mr. Former Taoiseach, we do play hockey in Galway and in Kinvara, and we played very well. So we need the support. I see it in school with demoralised kids when they come away from matches, having not played as well as they could do if they had access to proper facilities. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to watch them come away so yeah, support. We need all the help we can get. So yeah, just get on board and help.
Elaine?
Yeah, well, I'm an example of somebody who played Irish Masters 2 years ago and have played hockey since I was 12 years of age. It is the best game for longevity and keeping people in the sport. So from that point of view, there's money in the province. We need the facilities. The volunteers are there. The hard work is there. The players are there. There's more players waiting to get in. We need financial backing, and we need a couple of new pitches this year.
Tanya?
Well, same the lines of everybody else. The 2 key things when it comes to development is facilities and volunteers. The more people we get that's involved, either old hockey players that are stopped playing hockey or would like to get back into it, it'd be fantastic if we have many of those people, come on the bandwagon to support either through making themselves available, whatever initiatives we have from a Connacht branch. And again, as I said, just get the community to share on social media as much as you can to keep the Connacht Hockey's plight for facilities, particularly in Galway, even in the rest of the province, just a plight there that we are in dire need of facilities to develop the game.
Final word, Aisling, to yourself.
Yeah, so I think it's very important to acknowledge that prior to myself and Kevin stepping in, the Galway Hockey Club had opened the door with a lot of conversations. But I do want to acknowledge the fact that the City and County Council are in discussions with us and the door is now open. I also want to acknowledge Clodagh Higgins, who has been right behind us from the start of this and has really fought for our sport and is fighting hard. Joe Byrne is working hard with Kinvara, and Kinvara, I have to commend them on their own campaign. They really are fighting hard, and they also deserve a pitch of their own, and I really hope they get it. Our conversations are very positive. I would ask that anybody who has an interest in helping Connacht Hockey, that as a result of this, that they step forward. If anybody is interested in coming on board with regards to sponsorship, I would ask them to step forward to help the sport. As everybody else said here, it's a great sport. This is a sport that I'm involved in since I was 7, and I started with Galway Hockey Club. And Donald will tell you that he got me into umpiring because he said I wasn't a good player. So, and I travelled the world with that. Hockey was my friend when I had none. Hockey was my light when I went into the darkness of depression, and hockey got me through my cancer. It's a very important thing to have sport in your life. All we want is facilities for kids like all of us or adults to have the opportunity and a place to play sport. And that's all we want. And John, thanks very much for giving us the airtime this evening. And I just want to sign off on one final thing. We lost a very important person in Irish hockey yesterday, Vivian Clark, who worked in the Irish Hockey Office. She lost her battle to cancer. She was a brave and courageous woman, and she did an awful lot for the sport, and I wouldn't feel right if I left here without mentioning it. So thanks, John.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure having each and every one of you here. Clubs can't survive without sponsors. And those sponsors are absolutely valuable, and there's too many to mention. So I'm just going to be very general and say thank you to every single one of them, because that sponsorship is going to be so crucial once the action does get underway. Not may, not could, will get underway at some stage later on this year. You've heard the discussion, and this is a campaign that's been going on for quite some time, and I think will go on for a little while yet. But I hope this sheds a little bit more light on what is needed, what is necessary, and if you've got a cool £500,000, you know who to contact. Ashton Keogh's down there. Just to say thanks very much for watching this evening. We've gone miles over time as I look at the clock to my right hand side, so thanks for your patience and thanks for watching us, and we hope that whatever you do, you enjoy the next few days, and here's hoping that we do get some hockey played in the near future, and the very, very best to all 7 clubs in the province in their endeavours, whatever they do and however they do it over 2021. Thanks a million for joining us. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.